Oh, yeah, I look like a genius on camera. Okay, so, ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to try and wet sand a amateur paint job into a professional paint job. So, I painted this car, it's been six or 7 days. The paint's nice and hard. I haven't been doing anything. I've been kind of feeling crappy. So it's had lots of time to do its thing. And when I painted it, there's lots of orange peel and kind of goofiness to it. Like we painted this with El Cheapo tractor paint, and there's a chance I was the problem, but let's blame the product instead. So what I ordered a bunch of stuff off Amazon, and Bezos canceled the order today, so it's supposed to be tomorrow, it's now not, so I gotta see if I can find some stuff locally. We have a whole pack of miscellaneous high grit meaning very fine is how I'm going to say that. So I have 800 up to 3000, I think. So like 800, 1000, 1500, 2000, and we'll go from there. So essentially, what we're going to do is, if you watched a couple videos ago when we were blocking out high build primer, it goes on with a bit of a texture. So we're going to block it out so it becomes kind of flat. We take the little kind of humps and whatnot out. So the way we're going to do that, I'll show you on camera, but we're going to sand it, and as you sand it, parts of it will become dull, but there will be little spots that'll still be shiny. That's the low spot, which still has the shiny paint. So essentially, once you've scuffed this thing down to a flatness, we'll go with different grits. Probably start at probably 1500. I did watch a couple of YouTube videos, so I'm basically an expert on this. Never done it before. Never had a painted car I really cared about. So we're going to try that. Start at 1500. If we have to go down to like a 1000 or something like that, which would be a rougher sandpaper, it'll just take more material a lot faster. So essentially we'll start off there, work our way up so it gets finer and finer sanding scratches, and then we'll pull out the different polishing pads and whatnot and see if we can bring it back to a nice shine. Now, this is a lot of car to do. None of the trim and all that's on, obviously, so now it's probably time to do it. So I thought we'd start on the deck lid, because that's going to be very obvious to see, and then we can compare it to the side quarter panel and all that, so we can see what we've done, which should hopefully work out. And I think I want to do a fender. And then once we get that done, maybe the next video will be a pile of polishing. I'll employ my old man, and he can come over and do a bunch of work for me for a very good rate. And then we can maybe put the trim on and make it look like a car. It's supposed to rain, so enjoy the nice weather while we have it. Okay, so I had originally actually ordered a bunch of sandpaper from Amazon. Nothing showed up, so I had these locally. These are actually going to probably go on the buffer. I also ordered a little pad. So essentially what it'll be, I'm going to start by hand. I'd like to do it with a machine. And the machine is basically going to be a pad, very thin, that this part will go onto the machine, and then that'll be on the other side, and it'll just kind of take up, I guess, a little bit of the, so you don't have any hard lines in it. You want to keep it flat, but not too crazy. That's where this is going to come in. This is a sanding block, but it's got a lot of flex to it, so we'll be wrapping it around and using it like that. First, you got to get it wet, and we're going to be using lots of water, so that's the plan. So I'm going to get set up, we'll let this soak a little bit, and start scuffing. So this is a real, it's hard in the mind there. We're going to sand this paint. Now, obviously I don't really care about it. It didn't turn out super great. So it's not plugging up the paper, so you kind of turn that red water, which is good, means the paint is, I'm going to say, hard enough. I'm definitely going to want that pad, I think, because this paint is pretty hard. Or we'll have to go to a rougher sanding paper, which I kind of feel like, oh, yeah, I feel like that's what's going to happen immediately. I'll let this go. Nah, it's doing nothing. We'll wipe it off here and just see. But I don't think this is going to be gritty enough. I think we're going to have to start off with the 1000 or even maybe some 800. Well, it is taking it off. I shouldn't say that. It's got a lot to go. Now the nice thing is there's a lot of paint on this car, so I don't have to worry about sanding through. Well, I do have to worry about it, but I'm not worried about it. We'll take out some 1000, see what happens. Okay, so 1000's on the board. This is what you want. I already gave it a little bit of a scuff, but it immediately bit much harder. Now you want to keep track of where you're going again, because I mean we're taking paint off. There's no bones about it, and we want to take just enough off that it becomes flat. So I'll get in the corners here. I have to do that separate. We're just taking all the little lumps out Let's see if I can just dry this off real quick. You can kind of see. Might be hard to show up on the camera, but I can feel it, like right here, nice and smooth. And you can see, maybe I'll look at the camera. Ooh, it's hard to show on there. You know what? I'll do a little bit more sanding, and I'll take you off the your little base, and we'll get right up in there. But this will work good. I've already lied and pulled this machine out because it works good. You can put very little pressure on. I think it's the ticket. So I'll show you. That's where we started with. This is, you can see how lumpy it is. Now as we get closer, it's dull, and see, like right here, it's nice and flat. That's pretty good. Now there's some little spots, obviously. As we get closer to the end, you see these? That means the paint still has a ways to go down. We want it to all be kind of something along those lines. Now I don't know if we want every last little dot out or not, but we're gonna focus on it. Now here's my concern: when we're doing the edges, I don't want to burn through on that side. So you know what I should probably do? Put a little bit of tape down. That would have been smart, eh? But we just kissed it, so we should be fine. So I'm going to actually tape that up real quick, and we'll focus back on this. I'd like to get that remaining section out, and we'll just kind of do a little line. You're supposed to work in like 2-foot sections, where this is probably a foot square. So we'll try that. We'll see if we can bring this little section back to life and what it's going to look like. But this is one of those things where I think patience is key, which I don't have much of, and a lot of time, which I hate wasting time. But if it was a better painter, I wouldn't waste so much time. So here's what we're working with. We're pretty flat. There's obviously more we can do. But I think what I'm going to do now is take this little section up to 1500, just to get any little bit of scratches out, and then I want to try polishing it. Now, this is where it's a bit of a unique situation for myself. I could always just scuff this thing down and repaint it. But I don't want to do that. I want to see if I can polish the paint back out, because odds are the round 2 won't be much better. And a lot of you guys, if you got a car and the paint's rough, you don't really have the option of repainting it, and doing the polishing is quite a bit cheaper and easier. So we're going to try and do that. Now, my problem is, the second you start putting polishing compounds on, this stuff don't go well with paint. So right now, we have a perfect surface to paint. I mean, let's be honest, this is nice and smooth. We could sand it right down if we wanted to, and it'd be perfect to apply paint. The second you start getting, contaminants and stuff like that in here, you may really have issues down the road. But I'm pretty confident now we've taken it down. There's still lots of paint left on this thing. You can buy paint thickness gauges. Again, Bezos didn't send me mine, but I want to do that so I can get it all flat and just see and make sure there's lots of paint. But I know the painter, and he really put it down pretty thick. So I think we're pretty safe. So we'll get this into 1500, then we'll come back and we'll try polishing it. Then we can compare it to everything around it. Okay, we got the 1500 pad on. Lots of water. Now again, this is one of those things where I'm taking my sweet time. The experts, could probably go a lot harder and a lot easier. Now, this is actually going to work good on the flat surfaces, now to think about it, but the foam would probably be nicer in these kind of curves and whatnot. But we'll either get the piece or we'll do it by hand. So a light pressure, obviously, well, as much as you feel confident with, no guarantees here. And go back and forth. You don't want to stick in one spot. And as we're going around, so the water's, turning into the paint. So as it comes kind of red, you're getting into it. Okay, so I did cheat just a little bit. I jumped ahead and I polished just this one little section, like literally 2 inches. So you can see how it's flat there, and it's coming to a decent shine. We're not perfect, we still have lots of polishing to do. Now, I cheated, I didn't do 2000 grit, and if you can see, I don't know if it'll show up on camera, there's little swirls there, so I gotta do that. But what I really want to know, the swirls we can polish out, wet sand out, and all those things. I wanted to know how those little divots were going to turn out, if they would be really noticeable. Because I got probably 80% or so of them out. So you can see, like here, they're absolutely everywhere. It's just brutal. And then this is what we were kind of working with. So again, there's little dots here and there and whatnot. But as you polish around, they kind of blend in. So up here, there was the same, but they're harder to see. And this still needs a nice coat of wax on top, and we can, you know, make it nicer. But really, it's turned out pretty darn good. Now, again, my confidant, Scott, over at Cold War Motors, has been talking me through this. He does not recommend an electric sander. He recommends doing it all by hand. I will take that information and do with it as I want, and probably continue doing it by electric sander. Now, his recommendation, I should pass it on to you guys, because this may screw me. As you're going, you're swirling and all that stuff, that's all fine and good. He has no problem with that. You got a piece of dirt under there that you don't see, can't feel, it will gouge everything, and that's your problem. So it's not obviously against the sander, it's just a little bit of a tech tip there. So I thought I'd pass that on, even though I'm going to totally ignore it. So I think what I'm going to do is let's just carry on, do the whole deck lid. It'll come out nice. I mean, we got to sand that anyways, bring it up to the 2000, but let's bring everything down to, I think it was 1000. Then we'll do 1500, then we'll do 2000, and maybe we'll see how the night goes. Might be a tomorrow thing, but we'll see if we can get her polished. So I actually switched back to the block. I found it actually was much easier to control and kind of take the paint off, or bring it down, or flatten it out, whatever you want to call it. The orbital worked great, but it was tedious and all. So I used that, and then I just did this kind of on my own. So the thing is down, I used 1000 grit, and as you can see, it's kind of drying. It's definitely flattening out and stuff. There are little specks here and there, and I definitely could go further. Well, you can go till there's primer, right? Let's be honest. But it's a balancing act for me. You want the most amount of paint on the car and with the best look. So that's kind of how it is. There's one little spot right here where the paint went goofy, and I can actually, I think I see a little bit of primer coming through. So that's what kind of slowed me down. I was like, wow. Like it's almost like a little fisheye or something like that. So you're never getting that out. It's going to be the way it's going to be. Done just to here. Now you can see as it's almost turning like a hazy orangey kind of color. But if we put just a little bit of water on, it brings it right back to a nice shine. Now that's obviously kind of the goal of when it'll be polished. But now hopefully it'll show up on camera. I mean, it looks wet. Well, there's little specks of dirt in it. But that's what it should look like. And it feels nice and smooth and soft and all that. So we're going to go ahead and do, I said it was 1000, so 1500 and then 2000. So we're just, now we've got the base, we're just cutting all the scratches out that we put in, and it'll be time for polish. Now whether we get to that tonight or not, I'm not too sure. It has gotten, well, it got late on me. You know, that's what happens when you start slacking off. Where is this? A little 1500. So let's get going. So look at this. I mean, it's dull, but it's flat. There's little speckles here and there. I'm sure they're going to show up on camera, but compared to down here, like this feels like a golf ball, and up here, well, it's just fine. So now the two we're going to use here for buffers, there's this severe and then swirl and haze. So I believe this is the heavier duty one. So this is Mur stuff. He told me blue goo with a blue buffer, orange goo with the orange buffer. So we'll start with this, and I think I'm just going to do half or whatever. we'll see kind of what it looks like. See what the kind of, step by step. We're in no rush here. So we'll get this all dialed. We'll start polishing. It's doing something. We got a brand new microfiber. I don't know if that's the shine's being left behind or what. Oh yeah, well, it's getting there, eh? So it's still swirly, but the swirls are circular, which I think is probably from that polish, which is good. We're just gonna go bit by bit. We're coming back. Okay, so we'll put on the other pad, which hopefully this one, swirl and haze remover. I would say that's swirl and haze is what we got. Let's be honest, this is really a mer job. Step by step, it's getting better. I still don't think this is obvious isn't the top coat. This is still just kind of taking out swirls, but it's getting nicer. This is gonna be a nice car. Okay, so we still have some scratches, that's for damn sure, but I don't know if that's a me thing or if we just gotta keep polishing. I may have to do a little Googling, but right now it just looks like a weathered paint job. Kind of, but we're getting there. Does it show up on camera pretty good? Oh, yeah, I look like a genius on camera. Okay, so I don't know if I have any top polish stuff. I may have to run out and get some, but I would like to finish off this little section because I feel like that's a thumbnail. And I got some Meguiar's Ultimate Compound Clear Coat Safe, top coat stuff. I've already kind of buffed it in, and we're just here for the fun part. I have, oh yeah, high hopes here. So there's still scratches in it, which is probably either it needs more of the compound, which is a real time-consuming process, which Mer's good for, or maybe I need to be a little more serious when I take it into the, it's still taking some paint off with the polish, wet sanding. But honestly, come on. Looks freaking good. So, that's polished. This is wet sanded. And this is garbage. Well, it's hard to see because of the light, but look at this. See how kind of rough it is as you go across? You can really see the orange peel. And here we go there. You can still, it is quite scratched up, but it's all swirly, which makes me think that's coming from the compound. It just needs more polishing, but I think it's a win. I think that's gonna be great. We'll probably do the deck a little bit more tomorrow. It's gotten late, so I'm gonna call it for tonight, but we'll keep giving her, maybe do one fender, just kind of do a little how-to on this one. Like I said, we'll be sanding and polishing my face off, but wow, if we can get it, some of the scratches out and get that color nice and flat and smooth, man, this thing's gonna be good. See, it's definitely redder and shinier. So we gotta bring that up to that color, but with this finish, or that smoothness, it's gonna look good. New day. I did a little bit of work, well, today after work, I guess I should say, and I finished off the deck lid. Now, when I say finished off, I mean wet sanded and gave her a little bit of a paint. Now, I didn't do down here, I haven't polished. This has just been wet sanded, and obviously you can see where I kind of started just putting some, I wouldn't say polishing, it's the, well, it's the compound there. So it still needs, lots of love. There are still scratches in there. I'm sure they're going to show up on camera, but I feel like that's maybe a Mer thing. He can see what he can do to it. And I mean, there are still little spots, right? I don't know how many of those we're going to try and take out. I'd like to see it in the high polish. and see if maybe they blend in a little bit more. But honestly, hey, if I saw this going down the road, I'm not embarrassed by this whatsoever. Now, I had a second way to fix this. Like we were saying earlier, wet sand and then clear coat it. Now, a lot of people, there's a lot of controversy, I guess, about clear coating an enamel paint job. I guess the gases can kind of be coming out and stuff. It's been a week. What I want to do, I'm going to try wet sanding this section right here. Now, this is going to be covered anyways by the trim. So we'll see. I guess what happens is if you clear coat it, it can kind of wrinkle. But a lot of people tell me it's the easiest way to do it, and we can just sand the whole car down to like 800 and give her a blast. Now, you can see the shine isn't quite the same. This is obviously the unfinished paint, but it looks like, well, texture. And this is nice and smooth. So, I don't know. If we can bring this to that, maybe it'll be a win. But I think we're going to do a little bit of wet sanding, either here, maybe another inconspicuous area. That way if the paint goes all shitty, not the end of the world. But I'm happy with it. I think we're getting there. I drive this as it is, and you guys know me, my standards are low. So if your time is free, which mine is, then you can do a little polishing. Oh, one thing that did happen though, I went a little aggressive and I did go through right here. This is actually a high spot in the deck lid. I wasn't paying attention. So that's another thing that kind of scares me about this sanding and whatnot. But that looks good, and you're not going to see down there anyways. Okay, so I've skipped ahead. I gave this section of wet sand. I actually wet sanded right up until the deck lid. Now, the main concern, my concern, I think a lot of people's, is the solvents from this paint, I guess. They'll bleed through, and they can screw up the clear coat and kind of make it wrinkle, which is a reality. I mean, let's be honest, that probably does happen. But on the flip side, I think a lot of these single-stage paint jobs have clear coat put on them at some time. So I think it's about a timing thing. Now, I'm hoping with the hardener and all the solvents and all that, they've come out. It's been over a week now, and we're going to try it out. And if it doesn't screw up here, then I'll do this little section up to the deck lid, and then, I mean, you can always sand through it. That's not the issue. I just want to see what it's going to do. So let's just see. It didn't immediately screw up, but we'll let it sit, maybe do its thing, and come back 20 minutes, half hour, once it's kind of hardened up or completely screwed up the paint. Movie magic, it's been 20 minutes. So it hasn't screwed up. Now, again, I didn't sand this down perfect. I just did like this, so it still had that little blah. But I figured, you know, I don't know. It's shiny. It brings the red right back in a hurry, and it didn't go gibbled. That's a technical term. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to finish sanding in here, like we're going to get all this and whatnot out. A little run I obviously have there. And, I mean, I'm just going to open the deck lid and I'll blast it in. Now that I feel pretty confident it's not going to ruin the paint, I don't really care. They'll be able to compare that to this. And then we can actually do the same process of wet sanding and polishing to the clear coat, which may give us a nicer look. And, I don't know. Oh yeah, see this UV resistant. Now obviously this is a can of Tremclad. We're going to use proper, you know, 2-part mix out of a gun, blah, 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 blah. But if we get the paint kind of where we want it, then we can put a little clear coat on it. We'll be good. And the place to get my paint has clear coat on sale for $69 or something like that dollars for a kit. So we can add another $60, which, let's be honest, I'll spend that much in money and time polishing this thing. So we're going to spend your money. I don't know what the best way to go is, but we're going to figure it out together. Okay, moment of truth. Man, I love just figuring stuff out with doing no research. Let's give her a nice little dusting. I think we're just going to make sure it goes on kind of wet so it's no dry spots. All right, I guess we'll just see what happens here. I don't know how much else we can do. So we'll let that dry up, and then we'll be able to kind of compare it side by side. I don't know how long this takes to dry. Probably be a while before we can try and wet sand it. It even says on here. Nah, we'll have to give it some time. Oh yeah, 48 hours. That's a while. We'll see what happens. Well, I think a decision has been made. Ultimately, I think that we can make like that with some polishing, but this took very little time. So we'll see. We might still play with this a little bit, but that turned out, I thought, arguably much better. Let's be honest. This is, you can do that for sure, but if you're not scared about spending a little bit of money and using a little bit of clear coat, I think that's probably the way to go. Now, again, if this, well, when it hardens up, we can then kind of scuff it, polish it, do all those things. This, we're just going to end up sanding off, but a proper two-part kit, that's the key. But there you go. So if you happen to have a butchered paint job in your garage, like me, it can be fixed with a little bit of elbow grease and some time. You know, don't panic. I mean, years ago, Hot Rod Magazine did an article where they rollered a car with Tremclad or Rust-Oleum, whatever it was, let it harden up, and wet sand and polished it into a nice looking paint job. So, I mean, it is possible. People are going to frown at it. Everyone's an expert when it comes to paint. I got to say, the paint people, man, you guys know everything. I don't know much, but I'm learning as we go, and honestly, either of these are way more presentable than something like this, which is a little bit rough, right? So, whatever makes you happy, and honestly, whatever gets the car on the road, that's what I say do. That's really it for today. Thank you very much for watching. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, all those good things, and I will see you on the next video where I am probably, well, I am wet sanding the entire car. Should be a good time.